By the spring of 1943, the war in Europe had entered a strange and dangerous phase. Nazi Germany was no longer advancing everywhere, but it was far from defeated. Adolf Hitler still controlled most of continental Europe. His armies remained massive, experienced, and brutally effective. Every mile the Allies wanted to reclaim would be paid for in blood. The Allied victory in North Africa had opened a door that had been closed for years. For the first time since France fell, the Allies could strike directly into Hitler's European fortress. But the question that haunted every planning room in London and Washington was terrifyingly simple. Where do we land? The Mediterranean offered a tempting route. Sicily sat at the crossroads of sea lanes, air routes, and political power. Taking it would open the way into Italy and potentially knock Mussolini out of the war entirely. Strategically, it made perfect sense, which was exactly the problem. Because it made perfect sense, the Germans would expect it. Every Allied commander knew what happened when expectations were met on a battlefield. Beaches turned into killing grounds. Troops were cut down before they could organize. Momentum died in the first hours. Sicily, if defended properly, could become a slaughterhouse. Hitler understood the island's importance just as well as the Allies did. German intelligence officers had warned him repeatedly that Sicily was the logical next step. Reinforcements were already moving there. Coastal defenses were being improved. Luftwaffe squadrons were on standby. An invasion there, without surprise, could cost tens of thousands of Allied lives. Inside Britain's intelligence community, desperation began to breed creativity. For years, British intelligence had studied German behavior. One pattern stood out clearly. German commanders trusted information that came from enemy mistakes more than information gathered through traditional espionage. If a document looked stolen, misplaced, or accidentally revealed, they believed it more deeply than anything delivered intentionally. That insight became the seed of an idea so risky that, if it failed, careers would be destroyed, and if discovered, it could cost lives on a massive scale. Two officers took the lead. Ewan Montagu was a lawyer by training, precise and methodical. Charles Cholmondeley was quieter, more imaginative, willing to think in ways that others dismissed as absurd. Together, they asked a question no one else dared to ask. What if the Germans didn't intercept a spy? What if they intercepted a corpse? A dead man could not be interrogated. He could not contradict a story. He could not break under pressure. But creating such a deception would require perfection bordering on obsession. The body had to be real. The identity had to be airtight. Every detail had to survive scrutiny from the most paranoid intelligence service in Europe. They searched morgues quietly, discreetly. Eventually, they found a man who fit their needs, a homeless Welsh laborer who had died alone in London. No family, no claims, no questions. Doctors altered the records carefully. The cause of death was changed to something that could plausibly match drowning. His lungs were treated to mimic immersion in seawater. Even decomposition timelines were calculated so that his condition would align with being at sea for several days. Then came the transformation. They gave the man a name, Major William Martin, Royal Marines. They studied real officers of similar rank, copying habits, clothing wear, posture. His uniform was carefully aged, not too new, not too worn. His shoes were scuffed just enough to suggest daily use. Then they built a life inside his pockets. Keys that opened nothing important. Coins worn smooth. A receipt for a modest lunch. A bus ticket stub. In his wallet was a photograph of a young woman with soft eyes and a confident smile. Her name was Pam. She was fictional, but her presence was deeply human. Alongside the photo was a love letter, written with warmth and mild irritation, as if from a woman waiting for a man who was always late and always absent. It was intimate, believable, impossible to fake. Unless someone truly understood people, they added flaws. A bank letter scolding him for an overdraft, a bill unpaid, a hint of a life under quiet financial strain. Intelligence officers knew this mattered. Real people were messy. Perfect cover stories failed because they were too clean. Finally, they added the lie that would change the war. Chained to Major Martin's wrist was a leather briefcase. Inside were official letters between high-ranking Allied commanders. The tone was casual, confident, not dramatic. The kind of correspondence written by men who believed no one else would ever read it. The letters discussed an upcoming Allied invasion, but not Sicily. They pointed instead toward Greece and Sardinia. Sicily was mentioned almost dismissively, a decoy, a distraction meant to draw German attention away from the real landing. The logic was sound. Greece threatened Germany's southern flank. Sardinia could disrupt supply routes. Any German analyst would find the argument convincing. Now all that remained was delivery. Spain was chosen with care. Officially neutral, it was quietly cooperative with German intelligence. Spanish officials often lost documents in ways that benefited the Nazis. German agents operated freely there. If the body washed ashore in Spain, it would be examined. The documents would be read, copied, passed along. On a dark night at the end of April 1943, a British submarine surfaced off the coast near Huelva. The sea was calm, almost eerily so. Sailors lifted the body with respect. There was no ceremony, no flag, just silence. As the corpse slid into the water, one officer murmured softly, "Good luck." The dead man drifted into history. Hours later, a fisherman spotted the body. Spanish authorities recovered it. British diplomats were notified. Everything unfolded exactly as planned, and yet nothing was certain. In London, MI5 waited. Did the Spanish open the briefcase? Did German agents see the letters? Did someone suspect a trap? Days stretched into weeks. No confirmation came. Then, finally, intelligence signals began to shift. German troop movements changed direction. Units, once reinforcing Sicily, began moving east. New defensive works appeared in Greece. Sardinia suddenly mattered a great deal to Berlin. When the briefcase was returned to British hands, forensic experts examined it closely. The documents had been handled, unfolded, refolded incorrectly. Microscopic fibers told the story. The Germans had read everything, and they had believed it. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler personally approved the redeployment of forces. He trusted the documents because they felt stolen, not planted. They came from a dead man. Who would sacrifice a corpse to lie? The answer, of course, was Britain. On July 10, 1943, Allied forces stormed the beaches of Sicily. They expected overwhelming resistance. Instead, they found gaps. German units were missing. Defenses were thinner than expected. The Luftwaffe response was weaker. Confusion rippled through Axis command structures. The invasion succeeded faster than anyone dared hope. Within weeks, Mussolini was removed from power. Italy began collapsing from within. German forces were forced to occupy their former ally, draining manpower and resources from every other front. Thousands of soldiers walked off beaches who would have died under heavier fire. All because of a man who never lived. Major William Martin was buried in Spain with full military honors. His grave still exists. For decades, no one knew the truth. German intelligence officers later admitted they had never questioned the documents. The deception had been flawless. History often celebrates tanks, generals, and massive battles. But sometimes, history turns on something far smaller. A forged love letter, a photograph, a briefcase chained to a wrist. A lie told so well that it became truth. The dead man never knew it, but he helped end a war.